Okay, I want to run a quick simulation. Just for a second, I want you to picture a specific Tuesday morning. You wake up, and your alarm goes off at exactly the time you set it. No snooze button, not even the temptation. You just get up.
That's already a fantasy for about half of our listeners.
Right. And you walk into the kitchen, and you know exactly what you're having for breakfast because you prepped it Sunday night. There's no debate. Your clothes are laid out on the chair. The commute is, well, seamless. Green lights all the way. You get to your desk, you open your laptop, you just execute one task after another. It feels clean. It feels efficient.
It feels like you are the pilot of a very, very well-maintained machine. I mean, that sounds ideal.
It does.
Yeah.
It's incredibly seductive, that
Right.
feeling of control. But now, I want you to flip the script.
Yeah.
Same Tuesday. You wake up late. The alarm, for whatever reason, didn't go off. Your phone died. You can't find your keys. You spilled coffee on the one clean shirt you had left. You hit
Oh.
traffic. Of course you hit traffic.
The standard chaotic morning. We've all been there.
We have. But here's the twist. Because you hit that traffic, you take a detour. You turn down a street in a neighborhood you've never seen before. And you spot a little for lease sign on a building that looks absolutely perfect for that side hustle idea you've been sitting on for like 3 years. You pull over, you call the number, and suddenly your entire year, maybe your whole career, changes trajectory. The morning was a complete disaster, but the outcome was electric.
And right there, in just those two scenarios, you have the central tension of human existence, really.
It feels big.
It is big. It's this constant battle between order, that clean, predictable, efficient routine, and chaos. The disruptive, messy, unpredictable force that throws us completely off track.
And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, and with you listening, most of us have been socially conditioned to believe that one of these is the hero and the other's the villain.
Oh, absolutely.
We worship order. We want the inbox at 0. We want the color-coded calendar. We think chaos is just, well, it's a sign of failure, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the default operating system for modern life, yes. We view chaos as a bug in the code, a glitch in the matrix. We think, if I was just more disciplined, if I just had the right app or the right planner or the right supplement, I could eliminate the mess. But the stack of research we are diving into today, specifically this concept of the architecture of balanced living, it argues something that is honestly a little unsettling.
Unsettling how? What do you mean?
It argues that a life without disruption, a life that is purely 100% efficient, isn't just boring, it's actually dangerous. Dangerous. The source material says that if you successfully eliminate all chaos, you are actually stopping your own growth. You're suffocating it.
Okay, that is a bold claim.
That's
It's
right.
dangerous to be too organized.
I love it.
And
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking the architecture of balanced living. We've gone through the articles, the psychological studies, and the core notes, and our mission really is to figure out why we actually need both of these forces, extreme rigid order and absolute messy chaos, to function as complete human beings. And what stands out to me immediately in this material is the core thesis. It's a real paradigm shift. The goal isn't to conquer chaos. It isn't to live a life that runs like a Swiss watch 24/7. The goal is to understand how discipline, how that structure actually supports freedom.
see, that phrasing right there, that stops me in my tracks. Discipline supports freedom. Because usually we feel like discipline is the opposite of freedom. Discipline is the handcuffs, right? Freedom is running wild in the woods.
That's the common misconception.
But this text suggests something different. It says that structure reduces friction while chaos encourages creativity.
Precisely. And if we can understand the mechanics of that, I mean, not just the philosophy, but the actual, cognitive mechanic behind it, that is where the magic really happens.
Okay, so let's map this out for everyone listening. We have a lot of ground to cover. We're going to start in what I'm calling the engine room, the psychological mechanics of routine and why our brains desperately need it to survive. We're going to talk about decision fatigue, but we're going to go, I think, a lot deeper than the usual headlines on that one.
Then we're going to pivot to the spark, the hidden and frankly necessary benefits of chaos, why your brain actually atrophies without a little disruption.
And finally, we're going to try to synthesize all of this into a practical guide. How do you build this architecture in your own life so you aren't a robot, but you also, aren't a train wreck?
It's a journey from the safety of the harbor to the uncertainty of the open ocean.
I like that. Let's start in the harbor then. Part 1, the engine of routine. The source material defines routines as something that creates stability. Now, stability is one of those words. It sounds a bit like a corporate buzzword. It's nice, but it's not exactly sexy.
No, it's not.
So why is stability the starting point here? Why is that the foundation?
Well, let's look at it through the lens of, say, physics or even engineering. Think about a skyscraper. The stability isn't the exciting part. No one looks at a skyscraper and says, wow, look at that amazing foundation. They look at the spire.
Right. They look at the shiny part at the top.
But if you don't have that stable foundation, you don't have a building. You have a pile of rubble waiting to happen. In the context of our daily lives, the text argues that routines provide the baseline that keeps our entire psychological state from collapsing.
So it's the floor we stand on. Without it, we're just in free fall.
Exactly. But the source uses a very specific term here that I really want to drill down into. It uses the word friction. It says routines reduce friction.
Explain that. Because friction usually has a negative connotation. It means heat or resistance, something slowing you down.
Okay, imagine you are trying to travel 10 miles. You have two options. Scenario A, you are in a high-speed magnetic levitation train on a perfectly straight track. Scenario B, you are in a beat-up Jeep driving through a dense, muddy rainforest with no map and no roads.
Okay, I'm picturing it. And honestly, the Jeep sounds a lot more adventurous, more fun.
It is. It has total freedom. You can turn left, you can go right, you can drive in circles, but I want you to think about the energy cost. Every single inch of forward movement is a struggle. You're fighting the terrain, the mud is gripping your tires, you're constantly dodging trees and rocks.
You're burning a ton of fuel just to move a few feet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The friction coefficient is massive. You might travel 1 mile and you are utterly exhausted.
And the train.
The train has zero freedom. It can only go where the rails are. It is completely constricted. But because those rails exist, because that structure is rigid and predictable, it can travel at 200 miles per hour with almost zero resistance. It glides.
That is a killer analogy. Okay, so the routine is the track.
Yes.
It limits your options in the moment. You're doing the same thing every morning. You're eating the same oatmeal, whatever it is. But it removes the resistance, the friction of daily life.
Correct. You are not hacking through the jungle of what should I do next every 5 minutes. And this is so crucial because our brains, they are incredibly energy expensive organs. They burn a huge amount of our daily calories.
This leads us directly to the villain of this section of the text, decision fatigue. I feel like I hear this term thrown around a lot in productivity circles, but let's really break down what is happening in the brain. Is it just that we get tired of choosing, or is it deeper?
Oh, it's much deeper than that. We need to look at the prefrontal cortex. That's the CEO of your brain. It handles logic, willpower, planning, and complex decision-making. The source material highlights a critical fact. This area of your brain has a limited fuel supply, a finite amount of glucose and oxygen it can burn through in a day. Think of it like a battery bar on your phone.
And I assume we wake up at hopefully 100%.
Ideally, yes, if you've had good sleep. But here's the catch that most people miss. Every single decision you make consumes a tiny unit of that energy. And I don't just mean the big stuff like, should I take this job or should I buy this house? I mean the endless stream of micro decisions.
Like, should I hit the snooze button?
Yes. Okay, just one more time. That's 1 unit. What shirt matches these pants? 2 units. Is this milk still good? Let me smell it. 3 units.
Which route should I take to work? Should I listen to a podcast or music? Do I reply to this text right now or wait until later?
It's an avalanche. Coffee or tea, black or with cream, this mug or that one.
It really is death by 1,000 cuts, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and the sources are clear on this. By the time you sit down at your desk at 9 a.m. to do your actual important work, the creative thinking, the strategic planning, you might have already burned through 30 or 40% of your executive function's energy reserves on complete and utter trivialities. You are cognitively exhausted before you have even begun the real work.
I feel so seen right now. That is literally the feeling of staring at the refrigerator at 7 BOPM after a long day.
Yes.
You know that feeling. You're hungry, there's food in there, but your brain just, it melts. You cannot compute the sequence of steps required to make a simple sandwich.
That is the classic textbook symptom of decision fatigue. Your executive function has basically shut down to preserve the last bit of energy. And this is why the source explains that the true value of a routine is not about being organized for the sake of being tidy. It's not an aesthetic choice. It's a defensive strategy of energy conservation.
So when we hear about these high performers like Steve Jobs or Barack Obama wearing the same outfit every single day.
Exactly. People often see that as a quirk, a fashion choice, or some kind of eccentricity. It's not. It is a calculated tactical maneuver.
It's system.
It's a system. By automating the trivial decision of what to wear, they save that packet of precious mental energy for how should we negotiate this treaty, or what should the interface of the iPhone look like?
They are building tracks for the train, so they don't have to drive the Jeep through the closet every morning.
Precisely. By automating those small, repeatable choices, you are not being boring. You are hoarding your brain power for the decisions that actually move the needle in your life.
There's another point in the source here that I really like, and it moves us from the idea of energy to the idea of output. It says routines make progress repeatable.
Yes. This is the fundamental distinction between the amateur and the professional.
Break that down for us. What's the difference?
So, an amateur in any field relies on inspiration. They rely on feeling like it. If they wake up and the sun is shining and they feel energized and motivated, they might write 5 pages of their novel or make 10 sales calls or have a great workout.
But if they wake up and it's raining and they feel sluggish,
They do nothing. They wait for the muse to strike again. Their progress is completely at the mercy of their mood.
so they're relying on luck.
And luck is not a strategy. It's not a business plan. You cannot schedule luck. You cannot put feel inspired on your calendar for 10 a.m. But you can schedule a system. A routine is the architecture that allows you to hit a target consistently rather than just accidentally. It decouples your actions from your feelings.
It reminds me of that famous quote about inspiration. I think it was Faulkner, or maybe Somerset Maugham. Something like, "I only write when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp."
Chuckles. That is the essence of it right there. That is the professional mindset. If you have a routine of, say, working on your most important project for just 30 minutes every single morning, it renders your mood almost irrelevant. The routine carries you.
It's a safety net.
It's a powerful safety net. Even on your absolute worst, most uninspired, low-energy day, the routine ensures you move the ball forward a couple of inches. And those inches, compounded over years, are what build empires.
So, okay, we've sold the idea of order pretty hard here.
We have.
We've got the train on the tracks, the batteries being conserved, progress is happening consistently. It really sounds like the answer to life is just to become a highly efficient robot. So why shouldn't we just try to automate everything? If routine is so effective, why does the source material argue so strongly that we desperately need chaos?
Because the world is not a train track.
Fair point. A very fair point.
And this is where the source material pivots, and frankly, this is where it gets really interesting for me. It delivers a stark warning. It warns that while routines are excellent for efficiency, they are absolutely terrible at adaptation.
Okay, so this is part 2, the spark of chaos. The source has this great line that chaos introduces adaptation when systems stop working.
When systems stop working, that is the key phrase. That's the whole game. Let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say you've done it. You have structured your life perfectly. You're the master of routine. Your calendar is a work of art. But then reality hits.
The black swan event. The thing you couldn't plan for.
Exactly. Your flight gets canceled. Your child gets sick, and you have to drop everything. The internet goes down a minute before a crucial presentation. The technology fails. The tracks just disappear from under the train.
And suddenly you're in the Jeep in the middle of the jungle, but you've completely forgotten how to drive off-road.
Correct. If you are someone who has become 100% reliant on rigid, predictable order, what happens in that moment of disruption? What's your first reaction?
Panic. Total meltdown. This wasn't on the calendar. This wasn't in the plan.
You become brittle. You snap. The source argues that chaos, in controlled doses, acts as a stress test for our lives. It's like a drill. We need exposure to disruption to prove to ourselves and to build the skill of surviving outside the bubble. If you never, ever practice handling chaos, you lose the ability to adapt. You become fragile.
It's like the immune system theory, right? If you raise a child in a sterile plastic bubble and you scrub every single surface with bleach, their immune system never learns how to fight.
Perfect analogy.
The first time they encounter a common germ, something everyone else shrugs off, it completely wipes them out. You need a little dirt to get strong.
That is a perfect analogy. You need the dirt. The disruption forces you to use a different set of cognitive muscles. When the routine breaks, you can't rely on habit anymore. You have to think on your feet. You have to problem solve in real time. You have to improvise. That is adaptation. And you cannot learn adaptation in a safe, predictable, sterile environment. You have to learn it in the mud.
This connects directly to the next big point in the text, which is the link between chaos and creativity. The source is pretty explicit here. It says chaos encourages flexibility and creativity.
Mm.
But why? I mean, on the surface, that seems counterintuitive. Why do I need to be stressed out and have my plans ruined to be creative?
It's not about stress necessarily. It's about breaking patterns. Let's go back to your intro, the story about taking a detour.
Right, the traffic jam led to finding the new building.
That traffic jam was a chaotic event. It broke your established pattern. Efficiency is all about getting from point A to point B as fast and with as little energy as possible. That's great for executing known tasks. But creativity is usually about finding a point C that nobody even knew existed.
And you can't find point C if you're just zooming down the same familiar tracks to point B every single day.
Exactly. You cannot schedule an epiphany. You rarely have a breakthrough idea while you are blindly following a checklist you've done 1,000 times before. Your brain is on autopilot. It's in power save mode. It's not looking for anything new.
So the checklist is for maintenance. Chaos is for discovery.
I like that, yes. Creativity requires flexibility, as the source puts it. It requires the brain to make new, novel connections between seemingly unrelated things. When you are in a chaotic situation, when you are lost, when you are surprised, when things go wrong, your brain wakes up. It becomes hypervigilant. It starts scanning the environment for patterns, for solutions. It starts improvising.
So if your life is 100% scripted, 100% on the rails, there is literally no room for the happy accident.
None. You eliminate the possibility of serendipity. You become a very, very efficient machine for executing the past, but you stop being an explorer of the future. And the source implies that a life without exploration, without discovery, eventually hits a hard ceiling. You stagnate.
This is starting to make so much sense now. It's not about order versus chaos, like some kind of boxing match where one has to win.
No, not at all.
It's about understanding what tool to use for what job. You don't use a hammer to tighten the screw, and you don't use a screwdriver to knock down a wall.
Which brings us perfectly to the synthesis. This is where we put the two pieces together.
Part 3, the synthesis. And this is the part of the source that I found the most sticky, the most counterintuitive. It's the quote, "Discipline supports freedom rather than restricting it."
It is the core paradox of not just high performance, but of a well-lived life.
But let's be real for a second. Most people feel the complete opposite is true. If I have to follow a routine, I'm not free. I'm tied down. I'm a slave to my alarm clock, a slave to my calendar. How do we reconcile this?
Let's think it through logically. Let's go back to the idea of mental bandwidth we discussed earlier. If you do not have the discipline to handle the basics, if you don't have a system for paying your bills, a routine for your health, a schedule for your important work, what does your life actually look like on a day-to-day basis?
It's a mess. It's constant anxiety. You're always putting out fires. You're worried about late fees. You're stressed about deadlines you forgot. You're feeling physically gross because you haven't exercised or eaten well.
Exactly. Now, my question is, are you truly free in that scenario?
No, not at all. You're a slave to the chaos. You're a slave to the immediate crisis. You're constantly reacting, not acting.
Precisely. The discipline to automate the basics, to put the boring stuff on rails, it buys you the mental and emotional space to actually be free. Because your bills are on autopay, because your health is managed by a simple routine, your mind is not constantly cluttered with survival-level anxiety. It is free to wander. It is free to create. It's free to be present and to relax.
I love that framing. So discipline isn't the cage. It's the solid platform you build that allows you to jump from.
And here's where I think the analogy of the jazz musician is the most powerful tool the source gives us to understand this entire concept.
Oh, I like this. Okay, lay it on me.
Think about a truly great jazz improviser. A legend like Charlie Parker or Miles Davis or John Coltrane, when they are up on stage, taking a solo, playing something that has literally never been played before in the history of the world, that looks like pure chaos. It looks like pure, unadulterated freedom.
Right. It looks like magic. They're just feeling it. They're making it up as they go along.
But how can they do that?
I know.
Can you or I walk onto that stage, pick up a saxophone, and do what they do?
Absolutely not. It would sound like a cat walking on a piano. Just noise.
Chuckles, exactly. It would be noise.
Yeah.
It would be meaningless chaos. Why? Because they can only improvise, they can only play with that level of freedom because they first spent 20 years practicing scales. They spent thousands upon thousands of hours in the rigid, boring, repetitive routine of learning music theory, finger placement, rhythm, harmony. They internalized the order so deeply, so completely that they could step on stage and play freely with the chaos.
Wow. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Without the discipline of the scales, the routine, you don't have the vocabulary or the tools to navigate the improvisation. You have nothing to build on.
Discipline provides the vocabulary that allows you to speak freely. If you don't know the words, you can't write the poem. If you don't know the scales, you can't play the solo.
That's such a powerful way to look at it. So to bring it back to our listeners' life,
Yeah.
we need the routine to handle the scales of life, the laundry, the emails, the groceries, the bills.
So we can have the freedom to jazz solo on the important stuff. The creative project, the strategic decision, the quality time with family.
But, and I'm sensing there's a but coming.
There is always a but with this source material. It's all about balance.
There's always a catch.
The source warns us about a very specific danger here, a trap we can fall into. It uses the word stagnation.
Stagnation. Okay, so this is the dark side of routine, right? This is when the jazz player just plays the scales over and over and over and never, ever takes a solo.
Yes, that's exactly it. If you play the scales forever, you aren't making music. You're just practicing. You're stuck in the engine room. So the source suggests that to avoid this, we need the intentional breaking of routines.
Intentional breaking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this isn't just waiting for a flight to be canceled. This is going out and breaking something in our own life on purpose.
Right.
That sounds counterproductive. Why would we do that?
To keep the brain sharp. To prevent what the text calls the mechanical life. When a routine becomes too perfect, too automated, you stop thinking. You go on autopilot. And while that autopilot mode is great for conserving energy, as we discussed, prolonged autopilot leads to boredom, disengagement, and a dulling of the senses.
It's like that feeling when you drive home from work and you pull into your driveway and realize you don't remember the last 5 miles of the journey.
Exactly.
You were physically there, but you weren't mentally there. You were a zombie behind the wheel.
That's the mechanical life in a nutshell. So the text suggests we need to periodically, intentionally inject small, controlled doses of chaos into our lives. We need to shake the snow globe ourselves.
So what are some practical examples of this? Based on the text, how do we break things without, ruining our lives? I assume we aren't talking about let's not pay our taxes this month kind of breaking.
No, please, everyone pay your taxes. Chuckles. We're talking about micro disruptions. It doesn't have to be destructive. It can be as simple as taking a different route to work. It sounds trivial, but it forces your brain to come off autopilot and pay attention to the road again. You notice the trees, the new shops, the architecture. Your brain actually lights up with new stimuli.
Or changing the order of your morning ritual.
Yes. If you usually shower then eat, try eating then showering one day. If you always listen to a podcast on your commute, try driving in silence. If you always type your notes in a meeting, try writing them by hand for a day.
It feels slightly uncomfortable just thinking about it. It feels wrong.
And that feeling, that discomfort, that is your brain waking up. That is the feeling of new neural pathways being forced to fire. Without these intentional breaks, efficiency slowly curdles into boredom and stagnation. You become a very, very efficient zombie.
Nobody wants to be an efficient zombie. So this leads us to the final section, the architecture itself. How do we actually build this? The source outlines 2 extremes to avoid. We've touched on them, but let's name them clearly so people can identify them.
The first extreme is what we just mentioned, rigid structure, which the source calls the mechanical life. This is the person who is so efficient, so scheduled, so optimized that they lose their humanity. There's no spark, no joy, no spontaneity, just a series of checkboxes being kicked off.
And the second extreme, on the other side of the spectrum, is constant disruption or the reckless life.
This is the person living with no systems at all. It might sound romantic or free-spirited at a party, but the day-to-day reality is often exhaustion, a lack of meaningful progress, and constant low-grade anxiety because nothing is ever grounded or secure.
So how does the listener know where they fall on that spectrum? How do I know if I need more order in my life right now or if I need more chaos? Is there a diagnostic tool we can use?
The text offers a really useful heuristic, a simple check-in you can do with yourself. It's a set of 2 questions. First, ask yourself, are you constantly tired from making small decisions? Do you feel overwhelmed by the little things, the daily logistics of life? Do you get to the end of the day feeling frazzled but like you didn't accomplish anything important?
If the answer to those is yes.
Then you need more order. You have a routine deficit. You need to build more tracks for your train to automate the basics and free up that mental energy.
Okay, that makes sense. And the flip side, the other question.
The other question is, are you feeling stuck? Are you bored? Do you feel like every day is just a repeat of the last, like, Groundhog Day? And maybe most importantly, do you panic the moment something doesn't go exactly according to plan?
If you feel like a brittle robot.
Then you need more chaos. You have a spontaneity deficit. You need to intentionally break the script, get off the tracks for a bit, and practice your adaptation skills.
It's a balancing act. It's not a destination you reach and then you're done. It's a constant adjustment. Like riding a bike, you're always making these tiny shifts, leaning left, leaning right, just to stay upright and moving forward.
That is the architecture. It is a dynamic, living structure, not a static, concrete one.
This has been such a cool deep dive. It really fundamentally changes the way I look at my calendar and my to-do list. It's not just about time management. It's about energy management, creativity management, and resilience management.
Absolutely. All of the above.
So let's recap the main takeaways for everyone before we sign off, just to crystallize it.
Let's do it. First, we learned that routines are absolutely essential for stability and for fighting decision fatigue. They are the foundation, the tracks for the train. They save your energy for what matters.
But then we learned that chaos is the necessary fuel for creativity and adaptation. It's the stress test that keeps us resilient and allows for discovery. It's the off-road adventure.
And the sweet spot, the synthesis, is using that rigid discipline to buy yourself true freedom. It's mastering the scales so you have the ability to play the jazz.
And finally, realizing that you can and probably should intentionally break your own rules from time to time, just to shake things up and keep life fresh.
Which brings me to a final thought, a little experiment for our listeners, something to take away and actually play with.
Let's hear it.
I want you to take a look at your schedule for tomorrow. Or if it's already tomorrow, look at the rest of your day. Look at it closely. And ask yourself honestly, which part of this is a useful, necessary routine that is truly saving me energy and helping me make progress? And which part has just become a mechanical, mindless habit that I'm only doing because that's how I always do it?
Ooh, that is a good and slightly uncomfortable question.
And then ask yourself the follow-up. What would happen if I intentionally broke the script for just 1 hour tomorrow? Not to be reckless, not to sabotage myself, but just to wake up. Take that weekly meeting in a park instead of the office. Cook something for lunch you've never cooked before. Drive the wrong way home on purpose. See what happens when you intentionally invite a little bit of chaos back into the system.
I love that. Shake the snow globe, people. See where the flakes land. That is it for this deep dive into the architecture of balanced living. We hope you find your own unique balance between the tracks and the off-road adventure. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.